Hello and welcome to our BITV show on MIPIM 2023. I'm receiving Andy Poppink, CEO EMEA Markets Advisory of JLL, and I'm co-hosting with Paul Norman. Paul Norman, Andy Poppink, hello. Thank you for co-hosting with me, Paul. I think you will have the first question for Andy.
Sure, yeah. Well, Andy, I know we'll go on to your new role, but you've clearly been overseeing EMEA, an American overseeing EMEA at JLL. Be really interested to hear, what have you spotted across the continent that's different between different markets and also with the US itself?
Yeah, that's a big question, and thank you first so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
It's also great to see the energy at MIPIM, despite all of the craziness in our macroeconomic environment. So for me, landing in Europe to help support our EMEA business, I knew it was going to be challenging, and I knew I would learn a lot. And what's been really enjoyable for me is I've learned not just about our JLL business, but about the way markets function, about our clients, about employment law and cultural practices in this wide variety of places. I think we're operating in 27 distinct countries at the moment. So it's been a fantastic learning experience. There's some things that we do particularly well in certain geographies. Our team in France is an example, is one that I've learned a lot from. They were able to accelerate some of the digital transformation that was really focused on the Paris market because it's such a large market. And one of the things I'd love to also tell people when they ask me, Americans in particular, tell me about Europe because they think it's, it's distance, it's across the ocean, they do things differently. It's just to remind them that the Paris office market is larger than the Manhattan office market.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So just kind of put things in perspective. This is big real estate, and so there's some wonderful people doing just amazing work, and so to be able to learn from them, take snippets from what we do well in Germany, what we do well in the UK, what we do well in France, and apply that broadly, and then also take the learnings that I've had from 2 decades in the Americas to try to bring the best practices together. So it's been a really enjoyable experience.
Okay.
Well, thank you for saying all those things, because we also in France don't have that kind of feedback. Let's talk about the market, the property market. We had a lot of questions on property rates. What is your vision throughout Europe, throughout all countries of Europe, about what the rates are going to be like? And let's have a special focus on France, if
Sure.
you have.
Sure, happy to. So first I think of this in kind of a global context and also in the property life cycle. So the property life cycle is really, and some of this is grounded in my history as a tenant representative, but is really driven by occupancy and tenants and tenant demand, right?
Of course.
And so we are in this unique moment in time where we're still working our way through the future of work and the return to the office. And that varies fairly significantly from market to market. So large markets like London and Paris, we've got people back in the office, there's energy, there's enthusiasm about people working together and having the collaboration and innovation that comes with being back in the office. In other markets, in Germany as an example, it's been a little bit slower to get people to come back to the office. And when they're doing so, it might be 3 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week.
Okay.
Globally in the Americas, some of the larger markets, San Francisco, New York, much slower to come back, whereas others faster to come back. So they're unique circumstances, the living scenarios and dynamics of a culture that impact that. But what this is driven is, as we're trying to get people back to the office, we need to attract our people back. So it's not, mandates haven't worked in large part, it's how do we attract them back? And so there's 2 things that really have influenced that. One is the quality of the space, which means what amenities are we providing, right? Is it an attractive place for people to come back? Are we providing them with food and other services? And then the second one that's really more heightened in Europe is the ESG compliance.
Okay.
And so what that has done, the extension of that is, it's put much more demand concentrated on those newer high quality assets that meet those two things, right? So they're quality spaces, people want to come back, and they meet ESG requirements. And so you take Paris as an example, you asked specifically about that. We saw the highest rental rates that we've ever seen in the central business district of Paris. Now, that wouldn't necessarily follow in the logical pattern of people are going to use less space because of the work flexibility situations, but it's just created a bit of a dichotomy in the market where the high quality assets, a lot of activity and pressure, then there's a segment of the market that sees less, and then there's a further segment that potentially is obsolete in those stranded assets we've been talking about for a few years now.
Yes.
So I think the answer is, depending on the specific segment and the specific locale, then you have greater pressure and activity in those specific
And that's
areas.
throughout the Europe, you see it in every big city.
It varies a little bit, as I said. Germany a little bit different than the UK and
Okay.
France today, if you take the big three. But most of
I was thinking about Madrid, for example.
Yeah, so Madrid is a bit of a complex one. I say people
Really?
are back in the office a bit, but not to the same extent we have in other places.
A bit between both. Then.
Yeah, and
Between the
that's
both
where you start to look
situations.
into just the diversity of our European market, or EMEA for me. Climate matters,
Okay.
right? So in the middle of summer in Madrid, people are in the office.
Yeah.
Energy prices going up, air conditioning on in the office, all coming to the
course.
office. So there's some really micro factors that influence this a little
Yeah, and
bit.
because it's cold in the UK, people are going back into the office as well, is a theory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to ask you, one of the topics that's really been on everyone's mind here at MIPIM, unsurprisingly, has been what's happened with SVB and the American regional banks and what that might mean. And I know you were saying you were in Silicon Valley last week, sort of seeing it all unfold. What was it like in America? What do you think's happening?
Yeah, so I was, as you said, I was in Silicon Valley last Thursday and Friday, and this all really started at midnight Wednesday. It was madness. And I will say the people were calmer than I had expected, but I had dinner with some friends on Friday night, and they were a venture capitalist, private equity, and then a wealth manager. And amongst the three of them, they had two phones and going at all times, trying to move money to make sure that not just, their companies that they work with and then the kind of extended ecosphere was going to be able to function. I am grateful that the government stepped in the way that they did to ensure all of the deposits. The ripple effect, had they not done that, could have been massive. And the biggest fear for me is it's not really localized to Silicon Valley, but what it represents from an innovation and risk tolerance standpoint, because we need to continue to fund innovation, which is inherently a riskier investment than certainly property is, right? But those people, they're driving innovation for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and just stopping that cycle for even 6 to 12 months or slowing it down more dramatically than it has could have long-lasting and wide impact. You look at then what does this mean for the property sector, and in big tech, as we know, drove the property sector for a number of years leading up till probably last year. And those new companies that are getting funded, that's the future
PropTech
Google,
companies are
that's
really
the future
getting funded,
Meta,
aren't they?
right?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that it seems to be stable at the moment. Those runs on the bank, it's an old-fashioned run on the bank. It starts with one call, and then the trickle effect it accelerates rapidly.
Pretty fast.
Yeah. It's also amazing how much a topic of discussion that has been here in Cannes. We've got people who are very interested to understand what the ramifications are.
Particularly for interest rates as well. So that has been on people's minds a hell of a lot.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's TBD. We'll find out over the coming months what impact that might have on interest rates.
Yeah.
I think the hope is potentially that uncertainty allows to a kind of a softer landing, maybe a little more stability and certainty. But we shall see.
Okay. Well, regarding your new position, you've been appointed recently CEO Global Markets of JLL.
Yes.
This is kind of the dessert question. What will be your roadmap for JLL?
Well, first, I think my favorite dessert is probably like a dark chocolate with a little sea salt in it. So I don't know what yours is. As a dessert question. I'm very excited and eager for this new role. In part, it's the roadmap to me becomes pretty clear about what we need to do to both stabilize the existing business that has been such a wonderful business for so long, serving clients in the manner that we do, while also accelerating the pace of change so that we are digitizing our business, finding new ways to work, new ways to engage with clients, and finding the right balance to do those concurrently. So it's this dual process of making sure we're empowering our teams to work with clients and do what they do while accelerating the pace of change. I have a very clear vision of where we're going to head in this. It's a little early to be able to share it, to be honest, but I promise to come back and share that with you in a few months if you'll have me.
It will be a pleasure. Thank you, Andy Popping. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul, for
thanks for having
co-hosting
me.
again. And stay tuned for more on BITV.